Well, guys, finally we are here at the Yonkers Board of Education with Mr. Soler. Mr. Soler, the superintendent of the Yonkers Public School. Thank you, sir, for making this happen.
Yeah, thank you for your patience, and I'm finally glad we got time together to talk.
We got it. I had the first exclusive when you came to Yonkers, and now I have the first exclusive to give you a review, to talk about what have you done.
Yeah, so it's been 18 months since you broke the news of me arriving in Yonkers. You were the first to report it, so congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
And then a year and a half later, here we are.
A year and a half later. When you came from a very much smaller school district to one of the fourthest city in New York State. Mm-hmm. How was that transition, sir?
Yeah, so I think scale is always a big thing. You know, size definitely is different, but the work remains the same. You know, we had about 9,200 kids in Schenectady where I was. Here we have 24,000 students, so it's almost.
It's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a big difference. But having been familiar working in Buffalo and Rochester, you know, scale to me was not something that was foreign or something I wasn't used to. But different political environment, different city, different governance. So definitely a learning curve, and I think I've learned a lot in the 18 months that I've been here.
But basically the same problems, right? Because students are students no matter where they are. The only thing that differs is the size of the district. Am I correct?
Well, I would say I never say problems. I always say opportunities.
Opportunities, issues.
Yeah. So the opportunities to get better and to do better for families and students. Very similar. You know, poverty is the same wherever you go. Brings similar challenges. We obviously have some of that here in Yonkers, and with some of that comes some of those challenges within the school system and within the city.
Now, every time we have a new person in charge of any department, they come with their own views of how they want to run. Mm-hmm. Probably changes that need to be done because we are not all the same. We have different personalities. What was your vision when you heard about Yonkers and you were contacted and you accepted the position? I'm sure that you became familiar mm-hmm. with our district. What was your vision?
Yeah, so I think, well, first of all, Yonkers has always been kind of leading the pack. You know, historically, you know, the work that's been done. I think the stability and the leadership in the mayor's office is a big part of that success. You know, previous work from the previous superintendent, Dr. Quesada, did a really lot of work to try to improve systems. So looking from the outside in, Yonkers was always a good district, always leading the pack when it came to the large cities. Being able to come in, my goal has always been, and my vision is, like, how do we get to great? How do we get great? You know, we're 90% graduation rate. How do we get to 92? How do we get to 93? How do we continue to provide more opportunities for kids? How do we ensure that every school in Yonkers is a great school for families, which, you know, there's always different narratives around certain schools people want to go to, certain ones they don't want to go to. And so how do we change that in the district? So my vision has always been for the next 5 years, you know, we are redoing our strategic plan. We redid our strategic plan, and it's called Yonkers 2030. So we want to be a district that's not just good, that a district that's great and that has great practices that are the same wherever a kid goes. They get art wherever they go. They get music wherever they go. They have quality teaching and learning happening in every school, technology, things that we know every kid deserves, regardless if they're in the southwest part of Yonkers or the northeast part of Yonkers.
Now, I interviewed Dr. Quesada multiple times. I was at his press releases often. I have seen a big difference on the approach, the differences between you and Dr. Quesada. You seem to be a little bit more of a layback, in a sense. When you are there, you take the back and you let those that are on the field, the boots on the ground, even though it's through your leadership, but you let them take the front. And I have spoken to many people on the street, and they love that. Okay, yes, you are the person in charge, but there is people out there that do the work under your direction. Is that a new way of addressing? Is that a new way to make your team feel like, look, we are part of this, this is one?
Yeah, I think, well, I've always been a sports guy, and so it's always about the team. I think my approach is, distributive leadership, being distributive and sharing the leadership. We have an amazing senior cabinet I have associate superintendents, and when you have them, their titles are associate superintendents, and that means that they are an extension of my office. And so I want to empower them to do the work. I think the other thing that's beautiful here in Yonkers is that we have really great principals that do really good work, and our principals, every school that's good has a great principal with a great staff, and that all starts. And so if we allow people to do their job and provide them support, I think a lot of that success. But I will tell you that it's always about the team, and more than it is about the I.
So I'm sure that this does not catch you in surprise that Yonkers is a highly diverse city, and that reflects on the kids in your school. 70% of those kids are Latino or African Americans. How do you plan to advance equity in access to the advanced coursework?
Yeah, so I think for us, it's about making sure that regardless of your cultural background, we want to make sure that you have access to highly rigorous programming. One of our associate superintendents, who's probably been on the team the longest, can tell you they spent a lot of time creating career technical education, making sure that there were these pathways for kids, regardless of their Latino, African American, regardless of where they are. But I also want to take a step back and make sure that we also put value in things like My Brother's Keeper, My Sister's Keeper, initiatives that recognize kids' cultural strengths and assets. We created a new community school, Sonia Sotomayor, which is a community school that has a dual language focus. That was because of the community that we serve. We have a large Latino-speaking population, and so we wanted to make sure that we created a school that had that as the focus. And that was, the vision of the prior leadership. And I was fortunate enough to come on board when the school opened. So I think everybody recognized that there is strength in diversity. There is strength in different languages. We have over 60, I believe, spoken in the district, 60 languages. And we have many of our students, although they are grouped as Latino, there are a nice spectrum of different Latino, Ecuadorian, Mexicano, Puerto Rican, Dominicano. It's also a little bit of a difference between each culture. Although the language combines us, the cultures are also being recognized in all the schools as well.
As you figured it out before our interview, you noticed that I love exclusives, right?
Yeah.
I love when I was able to announce who was the next superintendent. I'm happy to announce, that you're here today to talk to us about your vision and progress. What about schools? Can we announce any new schools that might be on the board to come up to Yonkers or to Premature yet?
Well, we did announce, the mayor and the Yonkers Joint Schools Construction Board have announced we're going to build another school in the city of Yonkers. It's called Grand Park Community School. It's going to be by the Grand Park area. I'm not sure if that'll still be the final name when we're all said and done. We may do, we may name it after somebody who's either famous to Yonkers or to the country, but we are going to open up a new school that potentially will service between 600 and 800 students over in the Grand Park area, which will be a really, really great addition to our schools. We know many of our schools are 90, 92, 94 years old. Some of them are over 100 years old. So we know we need new buildings that are state of the art. To go back to the earlier question, quality schools. When you go to school in an environment that feels great, you learn great, you feel great. Everyone, it adds to the ambiance and the ability to be more successful.
Academic improvement. We hear Mayor Spano and you talk about the 90% graduation rate year after year after year. But we also hear about math and reading are not up to standard in many cases. How do you intend to improve that?
Yeah, so we are taking a real intentional approach on 3 through 8 with literacy, our efforts around literacy, making sure we're getting more kids reading by 3rd grade and on track. We are introducing, obviously, a new curriculum across the district. We introduced it this year for our lower grade levels to make sure that they're getting the strategies and the skills required to be able to read by 3rd grade, and that our teachers have the right resources. So we are making some shifts internally to continue to grow that. But what I would say is that although our numbers are not ideal, they are in line with communities that look very much more affluent than Yonkers in this area in Westchester County. So we're not far off of the other communities like Hastings, Dots Ferries, the other communities that surround us. Now, we may not be as high as level and proficiency rate, but we are continuing to grow every year. And in some of our schools, like School 30, had tremendous growth. School 17, tremendous growth from year to year. We're talking 30, 40, 50% in terms of growth, in terms of students growing from not meeting standards into a proficient standards on reading and math. And that, we believe, is the start. And as they get into high school, having them graduate on time with 22 credits and 5 regions, and that's going to be a change. There's a new portrait of a graduate that the state is coming out with, and so we want to be at the forefront of what that looks like for our kids. But yes, we're very proud to being in the 90 percentile in graduation rates. And what I would tell people is that if you think about that, we are 85% children of color in this district. That's 90% of all of our kids graduating, and a large number of that are kids who may be English language learners, African American, Latino, who are graduating in 4 years, coming out super competitive, and either going to college or going to career.
So the needle is pointing in the right direction.
Yes, and it has been.
And it has been. Budget and resources. Managing a budget in a school district of this size, it's not the same as managing the budget on the school district that you came from. What are the tough choices that you have to make in Yonkers to address the priorities of our needs?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing I would tell you is that we try to keep students at the center and the experience that kids get in the city of Yonkers. I think that's the one thing that we could be very doom and gloom, and that doesn't help anybody to think, oh my God, we have a budget gap. Yeah, these are real budget gaps, and in the last couple of years, this will be my 3rd budget coming into in Yonkers, and we've closed a couple schools, and that creates some anxiety, that creates some things, but we also opened a couple of schools. So, getting people through that change. The priority for us is that we want the student experience to remain quality, and so even last year we had a budget gap. We had to close a budget gap of about $70-something million. We still closed it, but we added things like school counselors to every school. We added psychologists, social workers. We added assistant principals to all the schools. So we were still able to add certain resources strategically. We added art teachers, we added music teachers. Typically in the past, we would be laying those positions off and reducing them. And so I would tell you that we are trying to protect the student experience as much as possible and figure out where we can make cuts outside of the classroom as far in a way as possible. And so I'm really happy that we haven't really had any layoffs, even though we've had significant budget gaps. This year is a little bit of an anomaly with the federal government and a lot of rhetoric and being pushed. Medicaid may impact school budgets. So I'm not really sure if we're going to be able to continue that, but our goal and my goal, the team's goal, is to continue to protect the student experience as much as possible. We didn't eliminate sports. We didn't do any of that in the last couple of years, and so that's our priority, which means that we have to look outside, and sometimes that's some of the things that we got to do better on are sometimes the contributing factor. Customer service, responding to families. Sometimes it becomes more difficult when you have less people at district office, but I'd rather cut away from the building as much as possible than in the building.
Now, I have to bring something up that I spoke with your predecessor often about the bullying issue at the Yonkers Public Schools, inside school buses. Actually, we received an email the other day and a few pictures of a 6 or 7-year-old boy with bruises on his face. We didn't want to publish it because I personally felt that maybe there is a better way to address the issue before we blast it on the media.
Sure.
Contact, speak with whoever, the principal, and then take the necessary steps. But what are you doing, sir, to address the bullying in your schools, in our schools, inside our buses?
Yeah, so every year we work on a code of conduct and character and support, and in that document we do some required training for all of our staff. Our school safety officers go through some training, our administrators go through some training, and then they deliver some training in the schools. We are also trying to teach kids conflict resolution as best as possible in schools when we can. We added school counselors this year. We added that for a reason, so that they are another layer of intervention and support. We have not an initiative, but multi-tiered student supports is where we try to create multiple tiers of supports for a kid who may be in conflict, not only academically, but also social emotional. What I would say is I wish I could tell you confidently that we would never have an issue of bullying.
Impossible.
It's impossible for me to say that, and so I would never say that. But what I would say is that it's important that they get in contact with us and follow the appropriate chain of command or the appropriate protocols. Always start at the school level. If the parents are not happy with their response, then they can escalate it. Every school has an associate superintendent who supervises the principal and the school who would get involved. Obviously you can call. What happens oftentimes, they want to call the superintendent's office immediately, and sometimes that frustrates parents because, like you said, I'm managing a variety of things. I'm not always going to get to you as fast as a school principal or an assistant superintendent or an associate superintendent or an executive director or the director of transportation. And so what I would tell you is always encourage folks to reach out. They can always email, and typically, there's many of us who check the email. But we have things like we just rolled out a Let's Talk platform that's right on our website that you can click a button. There's a transportation concern and submit it, and a team of people receive it versus just one person getting an email in their inbox. And if they happen to be at work or if they're sick or they're not, you don't ever know that. And so our thing we've been working on is customer service for families who may be getting frustrated, whether it's through special education, through transportation, or just any concern in general. We've been really trying to put a premium on responsiveness. And, again, now, I can't tell you that parents always like our answers, but the point is we want to make sure they get an answer or feel like they're seen and heard. And you know this because you're in this industry. Oftentimes people go to social media too quickly, and sometimes it makes it not always get the result they want versus allowing the system to respond. And when they don't respond well, then by all means go to Yonkers Voice and explain the frustration. And I think that would often get them a better result, faster, more appropriately, and then it makes us better.
I agree with you, and I always tell the people that send us emails, pictures, or whatever, contact that first step. Mm-hmm. Before you tell me about your problem, tell me what have you done to resolve the problem. Who have you contacted? Right. Did you get the results? Did they get back to you? Sometimes they don't. Right. So
you're an exception because not everybody on social media does that.
No. So and I don't always succeed. Once in a while I fall. It happens and I hear from you know whom. Yeah. But I try my best. Like everybody else, sometimes we make mistakes. Yeah. It happens.
And I would tell you that we make mistakes in the system. We are a people organization, and we have almost 4,000 employees and 24,000 students that we serve. We're going to have some errors. We're going to have people even on the inside who may say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, and we recognize that. It's more a remedy of like, how do we move forward, correct it, address it, and get to a point where families feel supported.
Mr. Soler, what about teacher retention and recruitment? When I say teacher, I'm going to put teachers, aides, one-on-one, all in one group. Mm-hmm. What is the job description, or how do you break down? We know what a teacher is, but what is an aide? What is a one-on-one aide? My understanding is one-on-one is what it means. It's one-on-one, not one-on-two, not one-on-three, or one-on-four, or one-on-five. I also realize that there is a desperate need for aides. So how do you manage the needs? What do you think is the solution for recruitment for people that you need to fill those positions?
Yeah, I think everyone always points to pay, right? Everyone wants more money, and I think that's a legitimate concern. Oftentimes, those things are, collectively bargained with various unions and representation. But I would tell you that the aides are a variety of positions. You have classroom aides, you have one-to-one, you have sometimes special educations that have a certain ratio, eight students, one teacher, two aides, right? We call that an 8-1-2. Pre-K has an aide. If they have more than 18 kids and they have 20, they have two aides. So there's a variety of combinations. I think what I would say to you is that we need as much help as possible. So if anybody's out there and wants to come into the school system, it's a great way to get into the school system. Start your way. And if you want to be a teacher down the road, we have opportunities to take school aides and work with them and have them become teachers down the road. And then we have great partnerships with various programs. So definitely, if there's school aides, I would even tell you things like bus monitors. We need bus monitors. We have an extreme shortage on bus monitors, which sometimes contributes to some of the bullying on the buses that happens because there's not enough adult supervision. The bus drivers, they're there to drive the bus. And so it's hard for them to manage the children in the bus. And so, oftentimes we find ourselves moving monitors to certain buses because there may be problems, but then now it leaves another bus without a monitor. So that would be something that I would say. And I'll tell you straight up, oftentimes it's because the pay. that people, don't do it, but we know that we offer great benefits, and so it's a great place to work, great place to retire from. If you're retired and you want to come work and help, being a bus monitor, being a school aide are great ways to do it. And most of our school aides work with vulnerable student populations, so whether they're pre-K, whether they're students with an individualized education plan. So, but it's a great way for them to make a difference in Yonkers.
But what about bureaucracy? Look, I always tell people, I have actually sent a few people here to the school to apply for aid, and they came, they did the application, everyone went through, but they've been waiting for months. Is the bureaucracy?
Yeah, sometimes onboarding takes a little longer, and then it frustrates people, and then people find another job. But I would say anything like that, that we have channels to say, hey, I submitted an application, I want to check in on the status,
So that is possible?
That is possible, yes. Yeah. Human resources here services both the city and the school system, so it's a large, it's almost, a large number of employees. But what I would say is if you ever apply and you don't hear back, please reach back out, because oftentimes they're probably in the line to be onboarded or to be, called, and sometimes they can expedite it.
Exactly. So, but you are still hiring?
Yeah, school aides, cafeteria. We even have some custodial openings. Some of them require civil service, and so
yes.
That's piece. Some of them require residency. Our custodians require, residency as well. So that's another thing to consider. But what I would say is we are hiring bus monitors, school aides, custodial staff are typically a lot of transiency, and our food service workers, a lot of transiency.
Exactly. It's not like you come tomorrow, you put an application, the next day you hire.
Correct.
There is a process and a requirement for you to get the job that you're applying for.
Go to our website, apply for the job. You'll get an email verification that everything was submitted, and then typically the person who is the manager of that department will get your file. Will eventually call to schedule interviews, and then you got to get interviewed. Not everything's just like, oh yeah, somebody applied, you're automatically getting a job. There is a vetting process to make sure we want the best with our kids.
Different jobs, different requirements.
Correct.
If we were here 2-3 years from now, I'm gonna make an appointment for another interview in 2 years or 3 years, and I would be asking you, what was your vision, sir, and what are you most happily of have accomplished? What is your goal?
Yeah, so my goal is that we move our graduation rate closer to 100 than where we are now, that we don't never slip in the next 4 years in our vision of Yonkers 2030 beyond this year, that we create quality options across the city, that no matter where you live, there's a quality school in your community, and that we've launched a community schools initiative that puts value in knowing that wherever you live in Yonkers, in your community, there's going to be a quality school for you to go to, versus you feeling like you have to choose a school outside of your community. And for me, community schools is going to be a big part of that work, where we have schools that offer things like clinics and vision and dental and things that we know our families need outside of the school. And how do we use the school as the hub for that innovation or for that support, and make sure that we increase. We just added a parent coordinator to the district. We haven't had that position in a while. And so how do we increase family engagement intentionally? That is my hope, that wherever anybody goes to school here, they feel that they have great teachers, great principals, quality experience, and hopefully by Yonkers 2030, when we're done with our strategic plan and we're looking to renew it, our graduation rate has never slipped below 90, and we've gotten closer to 100. But more importantly, that students in Yonkers are leaving with skills that if they decide to go to work or if they decide to go to college, that they have appreciated the ability for us to allow them to have those skills moving forward.
Now, safety is extremely important. We see what's going on around our nation. And has been instances that regardless of where you are, you just want to cry based on what you see. What are you doing? I wouldn't say to eliminate, because it's impossible, but to prevent anything tragic from happening in Yonkers.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're doing now is we're working on adding more interior and exterior cameras to our schools so that we can have better supervision and oversight. We have tried to, for lack of a better term, harden our buildings so that there's minimal ways for them to get in. And if somebody were to leave from inside, alarms go off on doors, they're indicated. We're also working on things like there's a law called Alyssa's Law, and we've enacted an app, a mobile app, that would allow all of our folks, if they see anything, they can write from the app alert, which would cause either a lockdown or put the building in alert, and that goes right to our partners at Yonkers at Yonkers Police Department. They have access in what they call the Aware Room. It's a room that can see our cameras, it can see city cameras.
The what room, right?
The Aware Room.
Aware? Okay,
yeah.
I think I've been there, yeah.
Yeah, so it's an Aware Room. It's a really amazing room that has all this
Full of cameras.
Full of cameras, so they can see city. And so when this notification goes off, they would be made aware, and they can immediately go into our school cameras and see what's going on. And I think the other thing is we're practicing drills. We do this every year. We have emergency response plans that we have to submit to the state that says what we will do if a gun was in, if there was a fire, if there was a school was in a lockdown, if there was a shelter in place. We have to practice these things every year, and so we do those things. We do these drills, and sometimes, we were all young. We're like, oh, why we got to do this again? But all it takes is one time, and so I pray we never have that situation here in Yonkers. But like you say, nothing's foolproof, and even though we know sometimes students make bad decisions and they bring like pocket knives and knives to school, we are trying to, again, harden our buildings by adding metal detectors, adding walk-through bag scanners. We're starting to add more of that in our buildings so that we could try to make sure that everyone feels safe when they walk in. And what I would say is also the cell phone, the internet-enabled device ban that was put in place.
That was my next question.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that actually has contributed, I think, more to us having less incidents around bullying and less incidences around confrontation, because kids don't have necessarily a way to communicate with each other as they did in the past. Hey, meet me in the bathroom. Hey, why'd you say that about so-and-so? Why'd you do this? We have
wait for you outside.
Wait for you outside, right. Now everyone's waiting outside to get to the magnet to open up the pouch so that they can check all their messages for the day. So it's changed things a little bit. Cafeterias look different now. Kids are talking. Kids are playing board games. Kids are doing things that they have not necessarily, things that you and I, maybe to go to visit a teacher. We've seen Walkmans come back, the little headphones, and kids trying to figure out ways to bring MP3 players back so that they can still listen to music. So it's actually been pretty cool to see how kids have responded to this, trying to figure out ways around still being able to connect.
Some bags have been ripped, for what I hear.
Yeah. We've had a couple bags and kids try to figure it out, and we address them, and then unfortunately now that kid every day gets checked because now they broke it, so we know they're trying to figure out a way. So now they either got to hand it in and keep it in the main office. And our parents have been fantastic. They've been working with us.
I can understand the kids upset. They're so used to have their phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there all the time. But the parents, what concerns me sometimes is the reaction of the parents. What if my kid has an emergency and he needs to reach out to me? What if something happens in school? What if?
Yeah.
So,
it's a great point. One of the things I would tell you is that we don't take the phones away from them unless they violate the policy. So they still have the phone on them. So in an emergency, it's in a pouch. It's on them. It's on in their book bag. They're holding on to it, but it's secure and it's on them. If an emergency, the whole point is get to safety first before you worry about calling someone in that manner. And so a lot of our students have just turned the phones on silent and they keep them on so parents can still track them, know where they are, because a lot of our families use various apps to see where their kid is. But if there's an emergency, we want everyone to get safe. And then when you get safe, if you break the device because there's a gun in the school or there's a major crisis and you're calling your parents after you're safe, then yes, then we understand that's going to happen. Where I think the biggest fear is that we are taking them away from all kids and you're not going to have them during the school
that's
day.
not the case.
Yeah, that's not the case. We took a different approach. And our kids have really stepped up. So I want to make sure that most of our students do fine. They come in, they put it away. And I think they've started to see a little bit of an appreciation to like, hey, how's it going? And talking to their friends and colleagues. And, we do have students who, like anything, try to find a way around every rule, try to find a way about it,
We've done that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's going to exist, but I think the biggest thing I would say is that for families, we know, that you may be concerned, or you may want to send a message to your child, hey, I'm not going to be home. Make sure you pick up your little brother or your little sister. You still can do that. The problem is they won't see it to the end of the day. And so when they open up their phone at the end of the day, they'll be able to see that message and get it. And if they need to pick them up early, do what we've done in the 80s and in the 90s for the most part. Call the main office and someone, they'll let the kid know to come down. You're going to pick them up early. things of that nature.
And if there is a major problem, the main office will reach out to the parents.
Yeah, and if there's a major problem, that's why I would tell you it's important for them to download our Yonkers mobile app, because when we have a major problem, we'll send out like notifications. So if they have our app on their phone, they'll get an alert, a text message that says, this school is on lockdown, this is going on. So that's why it's important to download it. It's not like another notification. And we know families don't like robocalls, right? They ignore robocalls. They don't, after a while, they're like, oh, this is just Yonkers calling me. I'm not going to pay attention. I'm going to send it to voicemail. Well, with the app, at least we can send a text message alert, and it'll come out, and they'll see the text message, such and such school is on lockdown, all is good, or the building was cleared. So I think that's important too. Download our mobile app. Make sure the school has the right phone number for you, because that's another thing. We know that cell phone numbers change often based on providers, or sometimes they're prepaid, and so they don't reload them, and then they have a new number. So we need to make sure you have right, accurate information. So we should have the best email for you and the best phone number for you.
And the parents need to answer that call, because I know a few that when they get a call and they see Yonkers Public Schools, voicemail. So they don't answer. So you need to answer that call when you see that the call is coming from the Yonkers Public Schools. Thank you for watching. Mr. Soler, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, and hopefully we will do this again in a year or so, or whatever time you think you need us to put something out. Please reach out to us.
I appreciate this.
Okay, thank you guys, and don't forget Yonkers Voice. This is the place where you can see, hear raw news as it's happening.